Mr. Mortgage, Doug Carroll with Ruoff Mortgage, and I am pleased to be sitting with friend, local artist, real estate agent,
Yes,
semi-professional poker player,
somewhat.
property rehabber, I don't know if that's the proper term,
That's probably the right term, yeah, absolutely.
a true Renaissance man, Mr. Jake Patten.
Thank you for having us.
Jake, thank you, man. Thanks for having us to your studio down here. I'm sure Mike, our great video guy, will get some shots of kind of what's around us right here. What can you tell us about where we're at right now, and a little bit of the maybe the history of the just kind of the general neighborhood that we're in?
Absolutely. So we're at 816 Rock Hill Street. I've lived in this home for about 15 years. It's also been my creative studio that whole time. But West Central as a whole, this house actually was built in the 1930s. But the neighborhood as a whole started being developed in the 1830s, so about 100 years prior to this home, which is 90 years old itself. But just the diversity, I think, of this neighborhood is what makes this neighborhood great. Definitely one of the reasons that I love moving down here. Early on, in the early days, the most affluential people and wealthy people lived on the north side of the neighborhood, which is kind of where we're at here. But then on the south side, a lot of the labor force worked.
Okay, south side is
South
in kind of now like past Jefferson.
So the north side would be considered Barry, Wayne, and Washington.
Okay.
And then from like the Jefferson to the railroad tracks where they exist today was where a lot of the early business and industrial labor force started. Okay. So you definitely see still that diversity today. Massive, big, ornate homes on the north side, more cottagey, worker, craftsman style homes on the south side.
So you've been you've been rehabbing properties down here, buying and I hate to use the word flip. It seems like a cheap just a profit thing.
Yeah, especially with these homes. I mean, I think there's
right,
more
exactly.
care taken.
Yeah, I mean, if you're buying a home built in the '60s and you're putting 20 grand into it, new carpet, new paint, that's a flip. But
Totally different
what you're doing to properties down here,
absolutely, way more extensive, way more money involved. I mean,
really bringing them back to the kind of the grandeur that they were when they were built. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the homes, somewhere along the way, some of these old homes, actually a majority of these homes at the time were but turned into multiplex and massive apartment complexes. So a 4,000 square foot home could have been turned into a 6-8 apartment complex. I'm not sure where that happened along the way, but as of recent, there's been tons of massive restoration, rehabilitation that have taken those homes back from the 4 and 6, 8 plexes to original single family homes, which is what I think is great.
Would it be safe to say that you were one of the pioneers of doing that here?
I would definitely not say it's safe
in the
to say
last
that.
20 years or so? I mean, is that?
I'd say we're influential in it. I would not say we're the pioneers. I think there's definitely guys that have been doing it before us. No, absolutely not. I think that we stepped up and spent a lot of money on a house recently, and really did it, I think, to a high end. Where I think it definitely brought people that would have never considered moving into the neighborhood down here. Mm-hmm. And I think we did help that start, but to say that we were some of the first is definitely not true. I think people have been doing it for a long time. I think it kind of started taking off in the past 5 or 6 years, and you're seeing that really develop now.
You're talking about the Orange House on
the Orange
Washington?
House, 1026 West Washington we had done projects before. We had never done one in West Central. That was our first real big, massive learning curve of what it really takes to rebuild a 100-year-old plus home. And it was quite an experience. 1 year, lots of money, but I think it turned out wonderful.
Ended up working out pretty well.
Yeah, we actually, that year we won the best single-family renovation, taking it from a multiplex back to a single-family home in West Central. So
that's awesome.
I think we did an okay job.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
Are they televising that this year, by the way, those awards?
That was actually several years ago. I think we won that award. Yeah, I wish they would do it over and over again. It'd be great for business.
So you're also a real estate agent, a licensed real estate agent, and you have been that for how long?
I think I started that, I want to say about 4 years ago, and that came as basically went kind of hand in hand with rehabbing homes. I had bought the first couple through a realtor, and once I learned the process of what it took to buy and sell real estate as a rehabber, it only makes sense then to have your real estate license so you can buy and sell on your own. When you do all the work, it feels kind of gratifying at the end to be able to sell it yourself as well. So I think they went hand in hand. I didn't realize it at first, but after flipping a couple homes and paying a realtor to buy me a house and then also sell the house for me after I did all the work to it, seemed kind of counterproductive. So
Sure.
that's when I decided to get my license. And yeah.
If you do anything outside of your own now, you're starting to grow that a little bit as far as the real estate
Oh, absolutely.
agent
So,
side. Yep.
yeah, so again, it was basically meant to be like a facilitator for the rehabs, but through art connections, through the neighborhood, just through, making friends and letting people know that you're a realtor, and having the knowledge of what it takes to rehabilitate a home, I think is invaluable to helping someone purchase a home. So I think it kind of went hand in hand, and I think if people like you, I think that's one of the main factors. Trusting someone, trusting an agent who knows what they're doing when it comes to buying and selling houses is the main thing.
Sure.
Somebody needs to be guided down this process.
Right.
It can be quite difficult and scary at times.
Somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody with integrity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Pardon.
Integrity is, I think, the biggest thing. And follow through. I mean, you have to follow through with your clients. I think it's very important.
How big is the Fort Wayne art scene, like most of Fort Wayne, with the growth and things going on downtown? Is the Fort Wayne art scene kind of on the forefront of the growth of Fort Wayne and the downtown area?
I think absolutely. I think it always has been. I think people miss how massive a wealth of talented artists that we have in this town. It's not just been recently. Again, the Fort Wayne Art School, at one point, actually, their home of their school was right here in West Central, just across the street. It didn't happen until the 80s that I think they moved to IPFW, but that was always facilitated down here. And still to this day, there are still a ton of artists that are super talented that live in this neighborhood or have passed on from living in this neighborhood. So I think it's always been super wealth of talent in this town, but I think specifically in West Central, there's always been a ton of really, really talented artists. So.
Now you. Is yours somewhat local still? I mean, do you have any exposure, I don't know, regionally or nationally or anything like that? Like, how far is that, as your sphere kind of grown in the art world?
So again, it's really taken off in the past 4 years. We started to get some good exposure to, actually came through a restaurant that happened downtown. We put a really large piece of artwork downtown. That was where people really started to notice the Jake Patten art brand, I think, per se. It's quite a bit different than other artists. So it's very distinctly seen. So, but I think getting it into a public space was the real big thing. And as far as paintings and how far they've gone, it's hard to say. I know paintings like all across the country. But as far as establishing shows outside of Fort Wayne, that's something we're working on right now. We're looking to move into smaller, no, I shouldn't say smaller, but local markets within stone's throw of Fort Wayne, Chicago, Columbus, Louisville. Very cool. And we have upcoming shows in those areas, but I really want to stay centrally located right in Fort Wayne. This town's made me.
Yeah, we can't be losing talent like you, man.
Not.
Come on.
Honestly, it's this town for sure. I mean, it's maybe what it is today. So
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, looking around, I probably should have asked this before, but when you pointed out this one, I turned around and looked at it. What is the inspiration for? Like, do you have an overall? I don't know, like an overall theme that's just kind of inside of you that comes out in your art, or is every one of them different based on something circumstance in life at that time, or what?
I think you'll see a lot of whimsical childlikeness in the paintings, and I think that comes from, again, being homeschooled, not getting to do a lot of the things that other normal kids would do. Okay. A lot of times when we'd go into cities or towns where my dad would be doing a tent revival ministry thing for an entire week. At the same time, there would be maybe the local fair or circus in town, which we weren't allowed to do, but you could see it would be right across the fence. So I think a lot of the stuff you'll see in my paintings are very childlike in nature of things that maybe I thought I missed out on. But then it varies so much too. But you'll see a lot of that possible whimsical lost childhood in a lot of my paintings.
That is. That's wild, man.
Yeah, so again, in the eyeball, not only there can you see an eyeball, but I also see like a Ferris wheel with a bunch of characters going around.
Yeah. See some kind of faces there in the
childlike in nature.
That's great. Do you have any like historical, not historical, but any past artists that you take inspiration from?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, mostly local though, because again, I had not a whole lot of exposure to major art scene when as a child growing up. It was only until our great library opened up, and I would just go pick up books randomly on major artists. But I think obviously Tim Johnson, massive influence. Terry Ratliff, Russ Edel, all the major artists that used to be at the old Fort Wayne Art School, or again, a lot of West Central artists. Just being around them, watching them paint over the years were definitely inspirational. So, yeah.
I was going to ask this question. Then, as I thought about asking, I thought, man, can we be that old to be giving advice to people?
Absolutely,
But
we can be.
I can't. Yeah, I guess we can be. What would some advice you would have for young, not just artists, but entrepreneurs? I guess people that just kind of do something that they love and not work for the man necessarily.
Yeah, persevere. Perseverance is the biggest thing that I could ever say to anyone. Good days and bad. No, but people always say that there's going to be great days, there's going to be bad days. But honestly, rehabilitating taught me so many things. I mean, old houses you cannot fix them like you do new houses. So you have to be super creative, just like with artwork. You have to be creative, but you also have to persevere. People are going to say things. People are going to do things. You're going to mess things up. It's how you deal with the controversy and the ups and downs of life that I think really define you as a person. And just stick with it, man, and have fun along the way too. I mean, if you're not having fun doing what you're doing, then you're doing something wrong.
With as much changes as Fort Wayne has gone through in the last 20 years or so, what would you say your favorite thing is about Fort Wayne right now?
Favorite thing, man, that's so hard to say. Just one thing. Off the top of my head, give me three. Perfect.
Right.
Three's perfect. Obviously, right now, Promenade Park. I'm not exactly sure how to say that, but I'm just so proud of Fort Wayne and what they've done with that project. I mean, the overwhelming sprawl and openness of that project, involving the waterfront and the walk through the trees. There's something for everybody at that park. Seems like a real central hub and a real crown jewel in what I think Fort Wayne's been trying to do for a long time. And lots of work obviously went into that, but to see it open and see people moving around in that park is amazing. Second would probably be our downtown art scene, man. Art This Way, and specifically Alex Hall with the projects that she's doing with the murals. We're becoming a destination for mural art and art in general, which 10, 15 years ago, we weren't even on the map. Now we're bringing artists from New York and Germany and just all over to bring in something I think is really special. And again, to have us being a destination city, there's so many reasons, but to have one more massive reason to come to this town and spend money in it, I think is amazing.
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we are not, it's not just straight local. We're trying to be one of the biggest players in, I think, the mural scene. And I think we are now. I mean, it's really happening. And then I think third would be the local businesses that are growing just around me in the downtown area. The boutiques that are popping up, the coffee shops, the local food scene, local chefs getting involved downtown. Just a revitalization of businesses wanting to come back to the downtown area.
Yeah.
Again, I've been down here 15, 16, 17 years, and even as short as 10 years ago, we'd take our bikes for a ride through downtown Fort Wayne, and it was literally a ghost town. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, no people around. Now, you better be careful if you're riding the bike path not to get doored by somebody, because there are just people and things happening everywhere. So it's just wonderful to see.
What's next? What's next for Jake Patten? You've got the studio going in.
That's probably the biggest thing is the studio happening. So we're going on vacation. That's the real next thing. Leaving for one of my bucket lists, going to Yosemite National Park next week.
Nice.
So excited about that, and also getting back to California, first time since the Marine Corps that I've been back there. But once we get back, we're going to go full bore, I think, on the studio and work through that until probably early spring, have it ready. And then we're going to continue to paint, and you're going to see pieces going up, I think, throughout the downtown area as well as through tons of residential homes in the near future. At least I hope.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jake, that's all I got, man.
I appreciate it, Doug, man.
Thank you so much for having us down here to your studio.
Yep.
And hope you all enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about Jake Patten, local artist, real estate agent, yada, yada, yada. So many things. Like I said, Renaissance man. Hope you enjoyed it. Come down, visit his studio, which is opening up.
Spring will definitely be the full-time opening. You can also visit my works at jakepattenart.com and on Facebook at Jake Art and Jake Patten.
And you can also see a lot of his paintings or some of his paintings in local restaurants and buildings downtown.
Absolutely. J-Back Restoration as well. That's where you can see our rehab projects and things that we have coming up in the near future.
Awesome. Mr. Mortgage, Jake Patten, out.